check, check. Just doing a check on the microphone, making sure that the stream levels are good. Thank you.
Questo è Alma, sì. Sì, 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 è Alma. Era Chi è Luisa che fa parte di Alma, sì. Vai, vai, ti lascio allora la mutanda così la prendi più facilmente. Sì, tu questo ce l'hai, vero? No, non te l'ho mai dato? Grazie. Guarda, c'è il mio timbro. In realtà il timbro è molto più del... Quello era della solo show che ho fatto l'anno scorso, quindi sono tutti i progetti, se vuoi sbirciare per prendere qualcosa.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donatella Della Ratta. I'm part of the Communications and Media Studies Department from John Cabot University. And I'm very happy tonight to be here introducing Giulia Tomasella lecture talk, interactive talk for the Digital Delights and Disturbances lecture series. I had the pleasure of meeting Giulia. Giulia is an amazing, as you can see, very young and bright, you will discover this during the talk, artist. And I had the pleasure to meet Giulia a couple of months ago through Arianna Forte. Thank you, Arianna, for being here. She's an amazing curator. And the first time when I met Giulia, actually, I met Giulia through Alma. This is Alma. She's gonna talk a lot about Alma. So I was fascinated by what she did with Alma. And tonight, she's gonna talk about female biophilia. Giulia is an interactive designer, an educator, a brilliant artist who got a lot of prizes for her work on biotechnology. And I think of you as a biohacker, a feminist, a committed feminist biohacker. Let's see. This is my personal, account of your journey. But anyway, okay, so I'll leave the floor to Giulia, and I think we can go until 8 o'clock. So hopefully we will have time, at least half an hour, to do a Q&A with Giulia after the talk, okay? So please, Giulia, welcome.
Okay, hello everyone, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, so hello everyone, thank you Donatella for inviting me. I'm Giulia Tomasello, I'm Italian, actually based and from Pesaro. Soon I'm gonna come in Rome. And I'm an interaction designer with a background in product design. So you will see that a lot of my work really has like a product design structure somehow, or process. But then I use technology, especially wearable technology and biotechnology, to democratize taboo in the female bodies. So female biophilia is a term that I started to use with my first project, Future Flora, that I will show you in a bit. And I call it female biophilia as an inclusive innovation because it really wants to talk on how technology should be really used as a tool to empower people rather than maybe be the tool of success that all of us or that companies like Apple give it to us, but rather something that can start to criticize what is happening in the society or change some parameters. Okay, so the talk will be quite full of videos to keep you awake, me not bored, and everyone not bored. So everything you will be able also to find it on Vimeo or on YouTube, but I hope you will like them. So the video you just saw, it's called Coded Biophilia and was commissioned for the Milan Design Week of last year to really talk about how the theory of slow fashion can be interpreted, for example, with my type of work. And what I believe is that we really should invest on biotechnology and on an innovation from a material point of view that can reinterpret what it means to wear something, to wear maybe a living organism one day that will have a different type of life than the clothes that we are wearing today. And so those are some of the things that I work on. So my work goes into biohacking, which means hacking the process of the growth of a living organism like kombucha or bacteria. Wearable computing, which is more integrated technology on fabrics and on textile. And later here with the project Alma, you can actually see it and touch it. And then digital fabrication, which implies to work with all the machines that basically you can find in a Fab Lab or in a makerspace, like laser cutting 3D printing machine, and biocouture, which is much more a sort of philosophy in working with the living organism, where you are actually nurturing and caring on something that you are growing, and then you can use it, for example, for couture and so for clothing. And I studied in NABA in Milano, product design. I then moved to Eindhoven in Design Academy, where I did a master in social design, which I didn't finish because I failed. And then I moved to Central St. Martin's, where I did a master in material futures, where I also almost failed, but with the same project, a few years later, I got a prize. So please consider that sometimes, if in university, probably we don't really feel that from the other side, a professor is like understanding what we want to create, or even, especially when you're looking towards more a speculative design, so something that you project like in few years, and is not really understandable now, maybe because you didn't find even the right language, push it. Like if you really believe it, like push with the project, and maybe with time it will come like much more easier to explain. And indeed now I'm in the other side teaching wearable technology, biotechnology, and it's really important to slowly create the language when you are talking in a speculative design part. So indeed my work really goes to question and communicate these boundaries between what is human and what is technology. And those are some of the projects that I will guide you through. But mainly when I do my talk, since many years, I love, and I will continue to start by introducing this quote from the book, The Second Sex, from Simone de Beauvoir, which says, "That's me. I'm a woman, I have a body, and my body is a social construction rather than a naturally given datum." And with this quote, Simone de Beauvoir really wanted to state the fact that in society, we have the woman that is the woman body, or the woman that the society is expecting from, which we can talk about for, for a long time, how she should look, how she should behave, how she should dress up, and the woman that actually is also born to make kids, which is still like probably what society wants, but at the same time also a woman that maybe wants something completely different, and which probably now we are in a sort of wave of feminism and transfeminism where things are slowly changing. And my premise is somehow, what if technology can really be this tool to make this change? And my work is really based also from the movement in the 70s in Boston, mainly from the this group that were called like the Women's Doctor. So they were meeting like every week, and they were talking about topics that at the time, and we can argue even now, were considered taboos. So from menstruation to giving birth, sexual pleasure, orgasm. And they, at the end, like by just talking and sharing their experiences, they created a book called Our Bodies, Ourselves, that you see there. And they were just like selling it for nothing, for 50 cents, to just spread the knowledge to more and more people, to really democratize this knowledge and make it accessible. And so what we are gonna talk mainly, it's gonna be about discharge and about vaginal fluid. It's still a word that is difficult to say, or is difficult to talk about, because it's surrounded by a lot of taboos. So if maybe now we are okay to say the word menstruation or endometriosis, we finally know that it exists, vaginal fluid are still very much hidden in the world of silence related to female bodies. So people like Pussypedia, which for example is this collective that created a book that it's mainly a glossary talking about like different parts of the female bodies, also from female experiences, like the women in Boston, are like the collective that now they are really creating that type of language and creating new knowledges. So I started from the interest, or somehow the fact, that we are made of bacteria. So when I started to talk about microbiome, it was in 2015. And you have to imagine that the microbiome, so the fact that our skin is surrounded by like thousands of bacteria, which actually for like some part are human cell and some part are microorganism, like this knowledge just came up in the science in 2010. So they made it public in 2010, so it's very recent. And at the time, in 2015, they claimed that our body was made for the 90% of microorganisms and only the 10% of human cells, which is very little if you think that me as Giulia, I feel that I'm more human than a bacteria. And then slowly, because of more research, they started to make it also 50 and 50, to make it also a bit more easier for people to understand that, yes, you are also made of bacteria. And how I started to also work with bacteria was by starting to read scientific paper, because I'm a designer. I don't have a biology background, just like from studying it in high school maybe. But I wanted to really learn. I wanted to get the knowledge from a biologist to make a petri dish with bacteria and to grow them. So I had the possibility at the time when I was studying in London to go to a biohacker space. What is it? I don't know if you know about it, but it's basically a room which can be big as it can be very small. So this one, in this case, was very little, probably the size, even smaller than the bathroom there. And it had all the machines that you could use to work with DNA, grow bacteria in an incubator, have a centrifuge, so have all the machines that you have it in a biological lab, but that probably, if you're not a biologist, you cannot use. But in this case, it's an open space for everyone, so even amateur, like me, that I was just curious to learn, to go there, pay a 10 pound per month, and just use all the machines that I wanted. So I had induction, and then I learned how to use the incubator, the centrifuge there, and by chance I was going every every evening from 11 to 2, because student life is always like this in the night, right? And I was growing bacteria. And I was mainly growing lactobacillus, so bacteria from, and I will explain you, from a vaginal microbiome. And mainly what I learned here is to be in a multidisciplinary environment. So to learn the fact that I'm a designer, but if I want to make a project that speaks about biology, that speaks about sociology, anthropology, I need to work and collaborate with other people, with other experts. So what is very important is to really create a bridge between the different expertise and to create especially a language. So my way to go in the lab to read scientific paper, which at the beginning I didn't understand anything, was really a way to learn their terms and then slowly have a conversation, for example, with a material scientist or with a biochemist. Unfortunately, this biohacker space in Acne is not there anymore. They open it like outside London, but I'm sure that if you search online, I'm not sure yet in Rome, there should be one near you. But mainly what I was doing at the beginning was to grow bacteria at home, which is not something I suggest, but it was my only way to understand how bacteria were really growing. So I was growing them in my room. I had a box with 50 of them, as you can see, and I was mainly growing different parts of my bodies. So how it worked, you are at the beginning in a kitchen, you are next to the stove, like next to the fire, because ideally if you have a fire, you can like clean the air, so have a more like sanitized or clean space. And then you boil first agar-agar, which is like vegetable gelatin. You let it dry, solidify, in the petri dish, which can be in glass or in plastic. Then you take a swab or an inoculator, and you swab whatever part or whatever thing, even from an object you want to swab, and you create the swabbing layer in the agar-agar. And you should do it next to the fire so that you clean the air, ideally, and then you flip it upside down and you let it grow, ideally in an incubator. And what you do, if you're at home, of course, you don't have an incubator, is to, for example, buy an egg incubator, which you buy for 15 euros. You can set it up for 37 degrees, and this is how biohacker, they really grow bacteria at home. But what I was mainly doing was to domesticate biotechnology, because they were living with me, they were growing with me. I was taking care of their temperature, of the way they were growing, and I was mainly interested to see how textile and bacteria, they could grow together. So at the time, I don't know why, but I never looked at them under the microscope. So I was much more interested from just to see how they were growing, the pattern, the colors, and of course all the black spots were somehow contamination, because of course my kitchen was not a lab, and I had to kill them. So I had a biologist that was collaborating with me, And when Ariane was calling me, and after my pictures that I was sending to her, she was like, you have to kill them. Like, they are completely, like, this is something bad. You're growing something dangerous. And at the time, I was killing in a very bad way, which probably now I wouldn't do. Like, I was flashing them in the toilet. But probably now what you can do is to kind of let them like float in vinegar, because lactobacillus, they will die in a like environment like vinegar, and then throw them in the food waste, because everything is biodegradable and quite okay. So my case study was like really understanding things that actually we already do and they are already made of bacteria. For example, there is this soap called Mother Nature that is based in US as a company. The founder claimed that he never did a shower for 1 year. It was totally fine, because if we are made of microbiome, why I should every day wash myself and with the soap like let this microbiome go away? Like, and of course it's because like from the 50s we have this fear of the dirt, of the disgusting about bacteria, and that's why it's still very difficult to talk about. But he made a soap made of bacteria, claiming the fact that like we shouldn't like wash them away, but we should continuously like have our microbiome with us. The second one is a tampon with yogurt, because the reality is that when our grandmas were having, for example, some vaginal infection like candidiasis, so when there is a disimbalance in the microbiome and the good bacteria are missing, what they were doing, they were putting yogurt in the vulva. Now some people, they put it in a tampon, so to easily apply there. But the reality is that like they were applying just yogurt in the vulva, because yogurt is made of probiotics, and a vaginal microbiome of a white and an Asian woman is actually made for the majority of lactobacillus. So why not to put microbiome like probiotics like yogurt in the underwear? And then the third one is called vaginal seeding. It's something that they developed, they discovered like few years ago, like probably in 2014. Well, now it's a bit long time ago. Okay, maybe 10 years ago. And basically they discovered, like some papers, they said that if a kid is born with a C-section, is actually more prone to be sick when he will be an adult, because he is not passing through the vaginal canal, so he's not taking the first shower of microbiome that all the other people that burn from and naturally give birth are taking, and therefore he could have more sick, he could suffer more. So what some women started to do before the operation was to take a sanitized towel, put it in the vulva, leave it there, take it out, do the C-section, and then that towel to put it all over the face and the body of the kid. And from one side, the doctor wouldn't say no, because rationally it makes sense, but from the other side, they were also saying that with breastfeeding and other behavior you do to your kid, somehow the microbiome should be there. But this is still something that is not confirmed yet. So for me, were all the three like a very strong action. So what I started to question it was, in 2016, was what if we would really look like on the product that we use every day for our daily routine, from washing to the makeup, and we will really maybe check and see that we are already wearing bacteria, but in this case to empower women, so to empower female bodies. So Future Flora came, and Future Flora is a kit designed for people with vulva to treat and prevent vaginal infection. How it works, you will have a kit that is made like a petri dish, so very precious, like in glass, and you will have already a pad made of agar-agar, which is the compound to grow bacteria on top, and then a pipette to, like, with already some vaginal bacteria of an healthy flora in a powder shape, in a powder shape, and then with an inoculator to like swab them in the pad and wear it in the underwear. So ideally, if you are a person that suffers of infection, so you have a disimbalance in your microbiome, what if at home you can make your own pad, wearing it in the night, and just like prevent like infection to come, because you keep like with a good equilibrium your microbiome. This project doesn't exist. Not even me, that I was growing bacteria at home, I ever tried the pad with bacteria in my underwear. But it's a speculative design project. It means that in 2016, we already were speaking about biohacking. We were speaking about social taboos like vaginal infection. What if we can combine it and create a conversation around it? At that time, also, I graduated in Central St. Martin's with a D-, which was really like a kick, like just go out, like it's really like nothing. And then 2 days later, I was on The Zine, which is a famous like design and architecture blog. And I was super confused as a student. I was like, okay, who is right? My director that really doesn't like me and doesn't like the project, or all the people that really see something on it? Even though you go on the Zine blog and you have a lot of comments, which unfortunately we have to say that the half of it are misogynist. So people were just saying, look, just wash yourself, maybe directed to me, or this is not a design project. I cannot even like open the page in my office. I feel embarrassed, and I never showed a vulva, but the reality is that was shocking at the time. And now is at the Museum of Art Contemporary in Vienna, so it's permanent there in the design section, and I really donated to really show that we should talk about design also in these premises. And maybe the fact that in 2016 was not really easily perceived is because I also didn't do something, which it was really to talk with women and to understand how women would have perceived to wear bacteria in their underwear. So I, 1 year later, filmed a documentary called Girl Biophilia with the director Maya Zupano, and together we created a scenario where maybe women were talking about, the scientists as well that collaborated with me talked about. So I'm gonna show you just a little bit, and then the full documentary of 15 minutes, you can find it online. But what I wanted to say with this is that especially when you work with speculative design, innovation takes time. So you cannot expect that everyone will understand what you probably foresee, because you really need to create the premises.
As a woman in this society, speaking about your intimate health is definitely frowned upon. So when you hear a female talking about it, you're like, wow, she's brave, she can talk about that, and they look at you funny, but it could happen to you, it could happen to your sister, it could happen to anyone.
I feel like if you're a woman who needs to speak about her intimate health to a professional, it's always a bit of a difficult situation where you have to awkwardly go into a waiting room full of sort of Justin Bieber lookalikes.
It's definitely a taboo. I think in general women tend to keep this problem inside. I've never done this with a guy. I wouldn't feel comfortable and I think he wouldn't be comfortable. It's not sexy. So. Yeah.
Hi, I am Giulia, Tomasella, and I'm the designer of the project Future Flora.
Future Flora is a kit designed for women where the woman can make her own sanitary pad with bacteria and wear it in the underwear to treat and prevent candida infection.
A candida infection is this specific scenario where we have an imbalance in the types of microorganisms that grow in a particular place. And when candida is allowed to grow more than you normally grow, that's when you get the symptoms of the disease of thrush.
I know very little about skin microflora.
So the relationship between microorganisms and the human body is extremely complex. Evolutionarily speaking, microorganisms are the reason why we could evolve. Their intricate interaction has enabled multicellular organisms to thrive. So to this day, we sort of draw the line between this intricate relationship between them being part of us and them being separate from us. So the only way that I could describe the relationship between microorganisms and humans is probably by saying it's very tight.
And I tell you that innovation really takes time to really become real because, for example, 2 years later, in 2018, after all the movement of the hashtag #MeToo and H&M that, for example, started to have the first T-shirt like female power, this project became much more easier to understand, and it got a prize, a European prize called STARS Prize, which is an honor in innovation, technology, and science for the society from an artistic perspective. So it's money, but especially it's really like a change, a switch, like from a student project to something that maybe in the reality can actually be real. If like one day we know that we are made of bacteria, we can have an incubator at home. What if really we can just grow bacteria at home? There are people already like implanting microchip in the skin. So what if we can have this, this new scenario? And now actually just to say, STARS Prize is open, like with open call. So if you have some project that you believe like can look in this sort of imagery, like apply or just have a look on like what does it mean to talk like from a media art point of view into a social design field. But at the same time, Future Flora is very speculative because yes, like maybe now during COVID we understood that something very invisible can be really part of our body, and we have much more knowledge on microbiome. The reality is that if the part on the top, like urinary cancer, STI, urinary infection, STI, recurrent vaginal infection, period pain, or endometriosis are words that we are hearing even in TV sometimes, the reality is that from a female point of view, we never talk about the shame, untreated condition, anxiety and depression, unhealthy sexual life, the hysteria, the disgust and the impurity of the body, which of course is still like under like a huge umbrella of taboos, and which is still very difficult to create some sort of conversation around it. So in this looking at this scenario, I now work with a medical anthropologist, which is Isabel Farina, a material scientist, that is Tommaso Busolo, and a scientist expert in nanotechnology, which is Rio Mizuta. So the four of us, we are ALMA, so this multidisciplinary studio, and what we are trying is really to co-create tools from an educational and technological tool to talk about female bodies. And apologies if I didn't say it before, but when I say female or woman, please see it from an inclusive point of view. So really like a woman, born woman, like with a female genitalia, like a woman with a trans experience and a trans woman. So we really try to merge and to really work in parallel to talk about female intimate care. And this was the first project we started in 2018. So it's a sensor that can monitor pH, fluid, and also the microbiome of fluids to try to prevent vaginal infection. It's a project that we, for now, have been very lucky to receive European and UK funding, which helped us to really develop like the first prototype like this one and other type of setup to really create the project. Because just to let you know, like when you go out of university and if you are a freelancer or a self-employed designer, if you want to make projects, you need to get money, right? You need to get paid. And if you can get funding or grants, that's the best way to push further your project. Otherwise, like, it's always a bit tricky, and even with grants it's a bit tricky. But I would suggest really to start from now to apply to things, to really understand what is the language in applying for design call. But in this case, we were very lucky. We got the Reframe grant, which is about rethinking fashion. And we were able to collaborate with Fraunhofer, which is a research center based all over the world. But the one in Berlin, they're specialized on electronic textiles, meaning that we can arrive to really like have a technology that now we see it like very static and hard on the phone. in something that can really be crumbled and maybe put in the washing machine, wash it, and be worn like in our underwear, for example. So how like we developed it at the time in 2019 in their lab was to have this sensor that is embroidered in a machine and is embroidered with gold and silver thread. So you could argue very expensive, but also very conductive. And if a vaginal fluid is going in top of these two electrodes, that was also chemically like we coated to become a pH sensor, it will send a signal, a change of voltage, to a microprocessor. And a microprocessor, you can imagine like any type of little computer that we have in our phone, in our refrigerator, in our washing machine, and then send through an antenna, which in this case is a coil antenna, a signal to our phone. So what is the idea? The idea is that if I'm a woman that I suffer from vaginal infection, so for example, I have symptoms like itchiness down there, bad smell, like very weird color and consistency of discharge, maybe I can wear the Alma sensor. I can test it in a day, what is the difference in pH and the microbiome, because maybe I can see that my pH is very high. And honestly, like a healthy pH of a vaginal fluid is 4.5, very acidic. And if it goes already very alkaline, and so for example it's 7, it means that it's a bacterial vaginosis coming. While if it stays very acidic and maybe it becomes even 2, it means that a candidiasis is coming. So maybe one question to you can be, did you ever know that if we would just have the yellow paper that changed the color with pH and we would have just do it in our vaginal fluid, we could understand which vaginal infection is coming? And the reality is no, because nobody told us that it could be so easy to already understand which infection is coming. Most of the time, I'm, for example, one of these persons that suffer from vaginal infection, and in the world, like 70% can have it once in their life, and the 15% is recurrent, which can really come 4 times maybe in a year. Most of the time, we just don't, and we're not able to recognize it. We maybe don't want to go to the pharmacy, we don't want to go to the gynecologist, so we stay with the frustration, the misunderstanding, and we just like don't cure it. So if now we have technology like the Fitbit to measure the glucose, the heartbeat, to measure anything we want, like the tech wants to measure, what if really we can measure something that has been so hidden but is always there, like vaginal fluid, because we lose it constantly, and can just give us the type of awareness that maybe will give us also the confidence to go to the doctor and say, yes, you know, doctor, I actually know that I have a bacterial infection because my pH is changing, I know. And this will change completely the premises of a woman like really having a different awareness towards, for example, the doctor. Or like we can really even go towards prevention. So this prototype was developed at the beginning at the Karnarayan lab in Cambridge, at the Cambridge University, because Tommaso and Rio, they did a PhD there. And so I'm not anymore alone, growing bacteria in my little room, but I'm collaborating with scientists. And this is what you should really looking forward to collaborate with experts. This was in Fraunhofer when we collaborated, and I had like an expert in engineering, like product design, like everyone really coming from different background to understand how to develop this complex underwear. And the reality is that, yes, at the beginning it's full of cables, maybe it doesn't work. I mean, technology doesn't work all the time. It's indeed a machine. And also, now it looks very big, so probably nobody wants to wear this. And indeed, also, it works only on a setup of a lab. It wouldn't work yet if you're wearing it. So this was really just a first attempt to understand how still is difficult to develop wearable technology, because the reality is that if it would be so easy, maybe right now we would have already a sweater that is smart, a smart hat, smart gloves, and we will be already much more interactive and using it in our everyday life. There isn't, because we don't have technology that is washable, that is easily rechargeable, that is comfortable to wear. So even though wearable technology exists since more than 30 years, Unfortunately, we are not there yet to talk about healthcare. But this is what we believe, so we are trying in our little lab and with our little money to make it. And everything, of course, is based on a co-design type of process. So everything really is informing from different fields. And I'm going to show you a very little part of a bigger documentary that we did to show you how to make the sensor. And sorry, but I have to jump with to go to the right time.
The reason why probably I started to work in this field was mainly also because we as female would never been understood from even simple problem that we have, like suffering during menstruation or actually feeling wet sometimes in the underwear, which is just normal ovulation of your vaginal fluid. The best is going to be to really start slowly to destigmatize society from different point of view and different levels.
A second, and then we have to press start. When should call you? Which point?
So the main concept that goes around the construction of female body and intimate care, which is the culture of purity, the culture of shame and hiding processes, and the language taboo. So the politics of silence, let's say. And so three things are the most important things, and came very big out from the workshop. And it's very related to how the female body is constructed socially.
This is my stance. Now I feel very comfortable taking it. I have and clothing it can be the same. It's not rigid at all. It can change, right? Because your body changes throughout your life. So to be in this contact with your body over its lifetime.
The sensor part, that track. It's good, right?
Super sensitive, no? It creates energy, you know? It won't, it will work with this kind of humor, but and then we have to have like a antenna, like antenna.
But then we could put more pins here, basically, and then thing on top basically over it. So you have like connected to it and press it in. So you have like this kind of this big thing in and snap it out again.
But as you already saw in this documentary, like what we wanted to really curate, and which is what I didn't do in Future Flora at the time, because it was also master thesis, you have little time to really develop a complex project, was to work in a practice of care scenario. So to really understand what people really would like to wear, would they be scared about using technology in their daily life, in like feeling empowered by something that at the same time is just a microchip, or is just like an electronics in your underwear. So the practice of care is what we work, especially me and Isabel, in creating the methodology behind ALMA and to really then inform the technology. So what we did is to run workshops. So far, we have been running 14th workshop. We started in 2019 in Rio de Janeiro. Then we went to Bangkok, to Malaysia, Switzerland, Spain, Germany, Italy many times, also Rome last year, and UK. And we've been really talking with many people, especially people with vulva, to really understand what are their daily routine in taking care of their body, of their intimacy. Like, what are they doing when they are feeling well, or also when they're not feeling well? Are they still like happily going to work or to study, thinking that nothing is happening, or frustration is there? And how they are dealing like during menstruation. What is going on with the taboo in the society, how they can change it, how they would like to see it differently. And what we notice is that you can go from Brazil to Malaysia, passing through Italy or whatever, the taboo is there. So it just changes maybe like from a cultural point of view, religion, like the way that they talk about, but unfortunately nobody is really escaping from probably what this society, this patriarchal society is being creating. So I'm just going to show you again a very little piece of the documentary only for the workshop, and then you will have plenty of time at home if you're interested.
So basically, why I guess your works is also because they kind of clean, swipe bacteria. The majority of the good bacteria are lactobacillus. This is why also they say drink yogurt or to eat a lot of yogurt which contain lactobacillus, because it helps to replace the elasticity. So what they will suggest is more to kind of replace with good bacteria. So this is why sometimes they also suggest to put like yogurt or drink more yogurt, to have this habit of drinking probiotics, because it's just like kind of keeping a forest flora.
Stuck. Maybe I can tell you what the computer is thinking about. An interesting part was really here in Penang, in Malaysia, because you have to imagine that in Penang or in Malaysia, you have different communities coming like from, so they have Malay Chinese, Malay Muslim, Malay Indian. So every culture is really informing like a different type of routine, of traditions. And if the workshop usually was they were lasting like 3 hours, in this case was 5. Because you have to imagine that maybe like between even two friends, but they have different backgrounds, they never even share how they deal with menstruation, how they deal with just like a sanitary pad full of blood. And so everything was just so interesting for each other to understand more. And then in Thailand, for example, there were spirits coming in the conversation, that everything, of course, is something that you need to create a safe space to allow this conversation to happen. The computer is not really working. What do I do? I don't know. Should I just improvise? The computer, a technician? It's just a PowerPoint, but it got stuck. Maybe by now, do you have any question or curiosity that we can already raise up? And don't be scared maybe to ask. Yeah. Yes, no, it's a very right question. So the question was like, even if the sensor will read a pH, how can we easily understand it, right? Like how just a normal person. So ideally, it will be that the sensor will be connected to an app. So by wearing like this technology, you will see in the phone like what is changing and the level. So you will see pH 7 and therefore maybe informing like when you go to the doctor of what is happening. So yes, ideally there should be like a proper like also UI, UX and UI design for you to easily understand. Yeah.
If this was produced, how accessible would it be to everyone, and how expensive would it be if this was produced?
Yeah, you're raising a very good question. So the reality is that if in the market, like really at the shop, we cannot buy a smart textile or smart T-shirt, it's because also it's not there yet. So I'm sure that if a smart underwear will be there, it will not be something inclusive and accessible for everyone. That's the reality, and which is something that we struggle a lot as well, because of course we come with a very ethical background and ethical like thinking that we are thoughts, especially me, that I don't want to drop, because it's what Alma is making is a different like product and project in compared to what we have in the market, especially in the femtech like area. And so what we actually now doing, moving from the high tech, is to really design a low tech, which now that the slide works, like I'm going to tell you. But yes, it's exactly to create different tools which are not maybe so difficult and complex and expensive, especially in the material. But yeah, I'm not going to show the video, so. Okay, but they are maybe going to be something very easy and practical that everyone can do at home. So like really like to make it horizontal, to make it accessible, and just to allow to everyone to still be able to measure the pH, understand what does it mean vaginal fluid and microbiome. You're welcome. Is there another question? Yeah?
Could be dangerous to wear like technology or something which is like made of technology in such like a delicate part of our body.
Rephrase it for me, maybe the beginning, yeah?
Could it be dangerous?
Dangerous.
To wear it like in such like a delicate part of our body?
Fair question, and it's a question that comes every time I do a workshop. Like usually the question, imagine, the question I was asking to women when I was doing Future Flora was like, hey, would you like to wear bacteria in the underwear? First reply, no. Of course, like, no. I mean, I'm so scared. I clean every time with bleach, with everything. Of course, no. Or, would you like to wear technology in the underwear? No. And the reason is why, because yes, we are super scared about something that we don't know. We don't really know what does it mean to have like a silver thread in our underwear. But the reality is that what are we wearing every day? Our phone in our pockets, which is already very close to our genitals. What about the Bluetooth headphones? They're very close to our brain. Are we thinking about it? No, because they're very comfortable and much easier to do everything and still call with people. What about the pacemaker? When pacemaker was invented in the 50s, people started to say, oh, I'm gonna be a cyborg. But trust me that the person that suffers of heart attack doesn't care. Really prefer to have this piece of robot thing inside the body, this machine, rather than like letting the heart fall down. So I think what is really important is to create really the context on why this technology should be there. So ideally, it will not be so invasive. So what we are now moving is from all this technology in something like this, flexible, that it can be applied on a pad, and that ideally you just place it in the underwear, you take it out, and you either wash it or it's like disposable, so one use. But the other reality is that since our sensor is kind of ready, all other tech is not ready. So as probably we were talking before, like the microchip, the antenna will still be too expensive to really bring it in the underwear. And this is why now we are slowly moving towards a low tech. But ideally, no, it will be all based to make it also like not too high, also the frequencies from the antenna to go to the phone. But yeah, the reality is also, did anyone, Apple or Google, said that really phones are not dangerous when we sleep next to them? No.
Yeah, this is why I thought about it, because like I read some articles that were basically saying don't sleep near your phone, or like stay away from your phone when you're sleeping because it's dangerous because of like electromagnetic, like maybe
Yeah.
waves or whatever. So
I mean, as Anthony Dunn and Fiona Raby has been saying, we constantly already live on Hertzian tails field. So we are constantly surrounded by radio waves, like a computer, a phone, a TV, whatever, that is just like creating in the space those connection and frequencies. So yes, the reality is that we should be careful, but the other reality is that technology is already getting closer to our skin. We don't, most of the time we don't really perceive it, because really when the Bluetooth headphone came in the market, we just thought that they were very much useful. When Facebook exists, right? I can talk with my partner that is in India, like in 0 seconds, right? I'm not even able to, I take more to go to my mom that lives like 3 hours from here, but in 0 seconds I can talk with a person on the other side of the world, right? But at the same time, Facebook is selling my data. Things most of the time are non-anonymous, but for me it's useful. So probably sometimes so first, technology should be much more open, accessible, and transparent, which is not, because otherwise company will not make profit and they will not have all the privacy in the data that they want to have to sell. The other side is that we should be also making our ethical choice in what is convenient, what is ethical, and what we want to believe and use. So I don't have a reply, but I know that wearable technology will come. Like, this is my belief, that really like biotech in a sort of wearable shape will arrive as soon as possible. So why I'm also teaching this type of technologies, because I want that, especially from a study, like from you, that you are just like in exploration point of view, we should just be able to deconstruct this, to understand how this is made, and to be able one day to just reconstruct it and rebuild it with what we really want. So ideally should be everything so open and so transparent to make it as we want. The reality is that is not true. So we, with Alma, we would like to arrive to there, to arrive to make something like technology that can be accessible, rechangeable, and whatever, and really to customize it for everyone's needs. But the other reality is that still it's very difficult. This is why we are taking so long time, and this is why most of the time when I talk and you have another person talking about femtech, we completely speak a different language, because it will be not even convenient to them to do like we do, to do workshops, spend time, and then analysis for each workshop to understand what people really want. Yeah, so it's tricky. But we prefer to go in this path. Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so maybe I finish with the slides and then you can keep your last questions, okay? So this is an exhibition that Arianna Forte curated with me in Vienna at Miss Balthazar Lab, which is a very interesting place and an interesting collective. So they work with also technology on a biohacking, DIY sort of things. And we were invited to really let the projects I work with, but to let them be talked by the people that we interview. So actually this was more maybe our key, like the way we wanted to show the work, so Alma, not only as an underwear, but what people really think about femtech, what they think about vaginal fluids. So all these sentences that were around those carpet and those mirrors were from all these workshops we run all over the world. And in the headphones, you could listen people talking about. So we were really trying to raise conversations. And we replicated something similar in September last year at Albumarte here in Rome, with all the results of 2 workshops that we run here in Rome through Erini, that is a collective run by Arianna. So why we believe that inclusive innovation should be the innovation that everyone should do is because it would really change completely the paradigm on how we use technology. Probably, and actually we know already, why a phone is so big that really doesn't fit for every type of hand, especially a woman hand sometimes, is because it's not designed also for them. It's not designed for us. And there is a book called The Invisible Woman that I'm invited you to read, that it like lists thousands of things that was never designed thinking for different type of bodies. So we are like, since already 2 years, probably one day we will see the light, writing a book and taking Alma as a case studies to talk about inclusive innovation, how technology should be further designed. But what we are moving now, it's really talking about a low tech. So when COVID came, I was also without a lab. I was like you at home, stuck. And I teach biotextiles. I teach how to work with living organisms. So I thought, okay, why I don't bring the same in Alma? Like, what if one day, instead of having this complex, very expensive sensor, one day, like, we can be at home making our own sanitary pad made again of agar-agar, and coloring it with sensitive dye, with ink, so dye, natural dye that is sensitive to pH, which you can extract from the red cabbage, from the blue pea flower, and basically with a drop of lemon, it changes the color, or with a drop of soda, so it really changes in base of a pH. So this was me testing it with the one, for example, in the middle, the blue one, where at some point you see a pink spot, is because I put my vaginal fluid on top, and indeed it changed it to a 4.5, because a 7 color is quite a blue, so it's very alkaline. So it's something that it worked. I didn't really test it in my underwear, I have to be honest, because again, my kitchen is not clean enough like a lab. But this could be one premises to really think about, and then you biodegrade it in the food waste. So we just won new European funding, still run from STARTS. It's called STARTS Cross Fertilization. And we proposed a project that got the first prize, and it's called Alma Toolkit. So what is it? We thought that if this now is taking too much, society also is not ready, tech field is not ready, because if not Apple and Motorola or Samsung, that they have more money than us, they are doing it, who are we really? So we felt, what if we really go back and we think that if one day this will be in the market, still, probably the majority of people with vulva here in this room, we never even like use a speculum to auto-explore, to self-explore our vulva, and to watch the most beautiful and hidden organ of our body, which is a cervix. So I don't want to raise hands, but probably really the majority of us didn't do it, included me. So what we thought is it's to really like start to create some toolkits with specifically 2 collectives. So one will be based in Bussoleno, which is in Val Susa, north of Turin, where there is a self-managed family planning. In Italian is a consultoria autogestita. So a place where people, they meet to really do practices that you will do in at the gynecology. So really self-explore yourself with a vinegar test, check if you have papilloma, and really just like democratize all these things that most of the time we cannot really do and only the doctor can do, but that most of the time the doctor just does while we are like this. So we never see anything. Probably a doctor will not even explain it to us, so we just never learn and never understand what we really have. And so what we would like to do is to do practices of self-exploration, the knowledge and the monitor of vaginal fluid, because again, for example, now luckily, like, we have a lot of Instagram account. I mean, mine is full, of course, because it's biased, like with all the things I publish and I'm interested in. But there is a lot from blogs of vaginal fluids color. So for example, if it's yellowish, maybe it's a bacterial infection. If it's foamy, maybe it's a candida. But how foamy is foamy? How yellow is yellow? We don't know. Because again, nobody showed us real, or we just probably never experienced it, luckily. But then we have it one day. So, and then also the knowledge of microbiome. So what if one day we will know this, maybe from elementary, okay, not elementary, medium, high school. So what if already we will have this knowledge from 16 years old, what it will change? And I'm sure it will change a lot. And probably people will be much more prone one day to wear bacteria in their underwear, will be able to wear technology in the underwear because they just have more knowledge that until now we don't have. Even, for example, just how to use the speculum alone, because by now everyone hates the speculum. I mean, really, like, probably, okay, let's do this. Who in this room really loves the speculum? You know what is the speculum? Like, here you can see this one here, the dearest in metal. But nobody, or even if you're shy, trust me, nobody. And the problem is that because we never have it in our hand, maybe. We never learn how to use it. We never learn that actually, even if a gynecologist will put some lube before, it will be much less painful and it will be much more enjoyable. And if even they will put a mirror, we will even see what they see. And maybe learn that there is nothing a shame, but maybe the speculum can be a much more powerful tool. Like if we will know even to learn about the cervix, we can even just by touching it understand when ovulation is coming because the cervix is going lower or up. So we wouldn't go maybe sometimes freaking out, oh, I don't have menstruation, or oh, I don't want to get pregnant, whatever. You know, there are just very little like basic knowledge that if somebody will give it to us before, it would be much easier for us. So we are now running it with, ideally, hopefully, Lucia Siesta in Rome or other collectives like Chain Italy, other collectives which are amazing here in Rome and they're already doing a great job, and with this consultoria autogestita in Bussoleno, because those people are already much more invested in understanding and democratize female body, and ideally is to create a blueprint, like this toolkit. Maybe they will be physical, they will be digital, we don't know, but what we want is that they will be online and they will be understandable for everyone. Because what you can see here in the slides are projects already made from people like the Ganepunk, which is a collective in Spain that they already started to like work with speculum and vaginal fluids, like 3D printed speculum. We have Mary Magic in the background that talks about how to make your own hormones at home to facilitate transition. We have Obot, which is Zoe Romano and Maddalena Frignito, which talk about in microscope how you can check your vaginal fluid to see if you're ovulating, because if you ovulate, you will have a snowflake, which is also cute. Or Teresa Almeida, which really worked from a wearable technology point of view to deconstruct part of our vulva and reconstruct. So some people already did it. We're not going to create something new. But with the community, we will create what is like meaningful and what they need. And especially what we would like to do is to create a language which also my auntie can understand. Because unfortunately, this still speaks on an artistic or hacker base. So not everyone is really aware of it. And yes, you can find more info at alma.org. We have a lot of videos because we think it's the best way to really talk and to really like send the message even all over the world where Giulia cannot really reach all the time. And these are my, my contacts, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Giulia, for this amazing, inspiring talk. Actually, I think the room is ready to ask questions, right? Because you already started during the talk. So why don't you guys just...
Maybe some doubts that you didn't understand.
Yeah.
Curiosities.
Yes. Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Did you say that the first product, the high-tech product, was one use only?
Well, this is what we don't know yet. The reality is that, for example, I was the one against having one use because I believe that we're already in a world full of waste. And if I'm going to produce as a new technology, a new waste, I feel a bit disappointed. But the reality is that Other people, and I discovered it really in a workshop I did last year here in Rome, many people told me, look, actually, I would prefer to sterilize it. And I don't have, maybe not everyone has an autoclave at home to really sterilize thing, so maybe one use would be much more safe to wear every day. But then again, what does it mean to make something mono-use that where you're not creating more electric waste or where you're not creating, again, more plastic waste? We don't know. And this is another thing that probably if one day we will continue again with the sensor, we will have to deal with, because of course we cannot ignore it. But yeah, so either it will be something reusable and that you can calibrate at home, you can self-clean it at home, maybe with UV light. This is how BioLab, they clean stuff, right? They most of the time have like UV light on top that sanify the whole platform. So what if maybe, and you have it already for sex toys. It's crazy. Like now they sell sex toys where the case, like you can activate UV so that it's already cleaning the toy. But again, maybe the price will be higher. We don't know. For sure, if it will come, it should be meaningful and with a sense.
And thank you. And is the second product, the low-tech product, also a one-use product right now, or the idea
I don't
of
think it will be a product. So
Or-
I think the toolkit, yeah, it looks like a product. To us, by now, it looks like the merging again Future Flora, Alma together to merge maybe more knowledge in sexual health and intimacy, which maybe can come just with a book. We don't know. But ideally, should really be something that communities or collectives can do, like independent, like not really, like I don't have to go there all the time. Like once we will understand what in the community they really want to discover, because it's the main need there, then locally we should be able to get a 3D printer maybe, or to get enough like speculum to really like use it. I don't know, but there should be like a sustainable way for the collective itself to sustainably move on. Ideally, we really hope that we will have one day more money to continue this and maybe do it in other places, and therefore there will be a sort of wiki, a sort of online platform where everyone can just access it, reproduce it, and then like update it. Because the point is that, yes, we have more knowledge recently on this, on vaginal health or like intimacy online, but they're all very like all over. Like there is nothing that is really putting it in one place. So even when we suffer of some symptoms, but maybe you can tell me different, but most of the time you search with Dr. Google and you get so many websites that you never know what is the truth. So what if there could be one space? Pussypedia is one of these spaces, honestly. So I would suggest you to go there. Pussypedia, Clue. Clue is an app for menstrual blood, for menstrual period. But they have also a very amazing part of a glossary where they explain you, they link to blogs, and they give you this type of knowledge. So there is, but unless you don't know, because Pussypedia is also very rare, very recent, and very still with a punk aspect behind, you wouldn't know where to go. So what we would like to have is to really democratize it and make it accessible. Like in one click you find it. But ideally one day should be in school. Like really like, I really hope that my cousin, that she's 13, and that now she knows already a lot of stuff because she has TikTok, but nobody's really guiding her, because then the society, the family, the school is not really having the same knowledge that she has. But that one day, maybe from school, she can add that type of guidance to really be confident with her choices.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I shock it? Was it? Okay, so please.
Okay, Giulia, no, I really love your approach. Of course, we invited you here. I think it's extremely important to have this DIY approach to technology, which is completely the opposite of what Femtech is doing these days. unfortunately, we, especially women, we have started to delegate everything to technology. Now, there are apps to tell us when we are menstruating, when we are ovulating, when we are fertile, when we are not fertile, And it's a matter of being aware, As you mentioned, the fact of being in control, it's extremely important. That's exactly the opposite of what Femtech is doing. Because it's very practical, as you said, very efficient, to have all these apps, but we are losing something, which is the knowledge of our body. And losing knowledge means not to be aware of what your body is doing, so to be subject to other people's knowledge, such as, the doctor. So I think the work you're doing is amazing. I wanted to raise an issue about things. I don't know if in this room you guys know Things or you use Things. It's a product that was highly popular, especially I guess in your generation. Menstruation underwear, right? This is the right word. And very recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, there was a scandal because, the fabric, they've been advertising those panties as, organic and, eco-friendly and everything, blah, blah, blah. Clean, super clean, but then the scandal is about discovering that, in fact, this was not really the truth. And in fact, the material was quite toxic. And then I read a lot of articles where people who used to use these panties, this underwear, menstruation underwear, they were shocked and they say, oh my God, I've been investing so much money because they cost some money. So I think, and actually the company, so my question is about the company was, of course, kind of exploiting in a way or capitalizing on the social stigma around menstruation, right? Because we don't like that we are seen as menstruating bodies. We like to hide everything, and so the panties were the perfect product. However, the people who bought those panties, they were not really aware of all the implications. And so I just wanted to ask you about this. This is just one example of what Femtech is doing and the reaction, people really, buying this stuff because of also the social stigma that surrounds fluids, as you call them. So I just wanted to pick your brain on this.
Yeah, I'm one of their customers.
But I guess you are aware, right?
I'm aware, and indeed in my next period I will not, I promise, because I have 5 of them at home. Well,
Wow.
they were a revolution. They came in 2014 in US, and here we didn't know shit, honestly. I'm very sorry to say. When I was in 2018 in Rio de Janeiro, 2019, and I was with women there, super activist women, and they told me, yes, we have period panties, from a specific brand there, sold in bio shops, in pharmacies. I guess in Italy it's the same. And I'm like, nope. In Italy, nobody knows anything. And it was, of course, because it was still a very difficult issues to talk. And just recently, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, Lovable started to do the first period panties. But what about all the other brands? Why would nobody thought about? But yes, Things, beside creating this revolution, they were very good in communication, the marketing. That's why they managed to reach so many people. But there were many controversial from the founder, the first founder, which indeed was also, they kicked her out at some point because the whole project started with a project being sustainable for some villages in Africa, and then it became a mainstream product in US. Then she was accused of sexual harassment to her team, so she was kicked out. But yes, nothing was ever transparent in the materials, in nothing. Even in the way you were washing it, they were never really going in depth to understand if really by just washing it in the washing machine, the blood will go away. But yes, they are comfortable, and I've been using them because they were making the job. So they are one. that they should have been more transparent, and still they are like hiding it because they replied saying, no, it's not true, blah, blah, blah. But for example, I'm very also afraid of all this menstrual app. I mean, so the word femtech was invented from the founder of Clue, which is a menstrual app based in Berlin. And she started this term to use it in 2015 to really talk about startups that are working in the field of women and which ideally are made also from women. So from a woman to a woman, made by women. The reality is that most of the time those products, they are mainly only digital, and that all those data most of the time are sold. So you don't really have a fully open source app, but you just have an app that gives you an algorithm on when your period is coming, when is your fertile window, and that's it. And maybe some interesting articles. When the Roe law completely collapsed in US a few years ago, or last year, I'm completely lost now, of course, like, there was the question, what about menstrual app? Will a menstrual app like Clue sold the data to the government to say that that woman is actually pregnant and wants to have an abortion? And the reality is that still there is a certain kind of uncertainty. Like, not really people are stating that they will not sell the data, because the reality is that government still can have the access because it's the government, whatever. And even Google never stated the fact that they will never share like from WhatsApp, from anything that a person maybe is going through. So from that time, I made my decision to have just menstrual apps that are open source. They exist, and it means that the data will stay in your phone, and only you can have access. No one from the person that invented the app will use them because they don't have them. And one is called Drip, so like the drip of water, and it's Berlin-based. And now another one is called Read Your Body. And so they are much more like coming from like a non-profit. So indeed what you can pay is just 14 euros, let's say, per year, just to sustain this research. But yes, so if you use your menstrual app, really think where those data are coming, how many women that they don't have rights, for example, for access to a legal abortion, they have to deal with it, and really think about the fact that, yeah, tech is great, but it's completely not under our control, so that we should really start to think about it.
That's a great tip. Thank you for sharing with us. Anyone wants to ask questions to Giulia?
You can always also email in case you're shy
you are
now.
too shy or maybe too hungry because it's maybe dinner time. So I think we can call it a day. Giulia, you have been amazing. Thank you for sharing with us the DIY approach to technology. We hope to see you again, and we hope that next time we can also have a look, take a look at your product.
You can already come here if you want.
And have a look at Alma. Okay, thank you very much everybody who participated in this, and stay tuned. Next Digital Delights and Disturbances is going to be in April. Have a good evening.
Thank you.